Hey everybody, hello, my name is Darius Anucauskas and I'm the Chief Market Analyst here at Markets.com, and today is Monday, ladies and gentlemen, the 25th of August of 2025 still, yes. Welcome everybody, this is the last Monday of the official summer. I hope this summer was good for you, but look, of course, if you live in an area where it's still hot and, hot and sunny, then certainly for you summer probably didn't end. Look, long story short, what I want to talk about in this session, it's obviously not about the weather, but more about the financial weather, actually. What's happening with Nvidia this week, because we have the earnings. Before we jump into the action, let's quickly have a read through our risk disclaimer. So yes, the content we produce does not constitute investment advice or investment recommendation and should not be considered as such. This material should not be taken as an invitation to acquire any financial instrument or product. I'll give you a few seconds to read the rest. I'm not going to disappear anywhere. So yes, also by the way, also just a quick mentioning of our Markets.com website, which you can always check out for more information about us. If you have any questions, reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to assist. Also, additionally, I'm holding the webinar on Thursday on the 28th of August. So yes, check out the time when it's at your in your time zone. But basically, the webinar is going to be for about the MACD and how we can apply it in real life action. Now, again, some of you are experienced traders, some of you are not. So maybe this is more for those who are less experienced. However, what I'm going to be I'm going to be digging into the MACD and also applying it on real life action, basically in the market, because we're going to have US session opening up during this webinar. And we can have a look, and see if how MACD can help us out during probably the most volatile period, when the market opens up. So it's more for the short-term traders, scalpers and everything. And but again, at the same time, I will be picking up on something long-term. So how you can utilize it in your longer term. Again, we're going to look into the fact if it's if it's worth it or not worth it, if it's working well or not. So again, it's my opinion, so tune in. Hopefully you'll enjoy the session. You can find the link in the description of this video. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, earnings calendar, Nvidia, there we go. We're having the results delivered after the market closes on Wednesday. Yep, at the moment the EPS, the estimate is for $1.01. I'm looking at other sources, and other sources give me like a $1 earnings per share. Right. Okay, look, I mean, of course, we'll be watching very carefully here. So far, looking at the history here, on the bottom, you can see that the earnings have been, positive so far, and basically only once here back in November of 2022, when we got the earnings, they were not very, let's say, satisfying. And but still, look, the stock still rallied, and look at this performance. Let me just get rid of the Fibonacci. I'll bring it back in a moment. Let's say, from this drop here we had back in at the end of before the earnings, before the bad earnings came out. So since then, stock rallied around, well, 1,600, and that's to the all-time high here, 1,600%. And right now, let's say we're roughly around 1,500. That's if we measure from this period. I mean, we can measure from here, even from the whole inception, in a way, from back here in 2014. That's a staggering 39,000%. I mean, since inception, that is ridiculous. But look at this parabolic move, and I'm sorry, but I'm a strong believer of what comes up must come down eventually. So I'm not saying that I'm going to be very, very bearish on the stock, no, But we do see, we can see that there could be some problems in a way. Look, but let me talk about this. First of all, the technical picture, looking at this, after we hit the all-time high near the 184.48 zone here, we drifted back down, tested the area around 168.80, rebounded, and we're now stuck here around that 178, 79, 78, 77 zone, something like that. So a little bit below the 180 zone. Anyway, overall, we're still trading above all my EMAs here, the 50, the 100, and the 200-day EMA. So in a way, this is still a positive. But at this point, for me to consider higher levels, I really need to see a push above this 184, basically the current all-time high. Then yes, I will consider a move towards the 108, 190 zone, or maybe even better, the 200, because this is what people are currently expecting, the 200 level. Now look, if it suddenly drops below the 168.80 territory here, right somewhere there, basically the lowest point, the current lowest point of August, then I'm watching the 50-day EMA carefully. This is shown as the green line, and if that gets cleared, the next target is the 100-day EMA. But again, at this, we need a bad report in a way. In my opinion, we need to see something like, some weakness here kicking in, and I think that the earnings, bad earnings, could be, the first one, but it could be a catalyst for that. But in terms of earnings, now everybody's expecting another beat, another good result, another good quarter, and in a way, yes, I would say yes. Let's kind of aim for that. But and since for now, Nvidia has not disappointed us with that, and we know that the company has demand. They're selling chips. Their chips are in high demand. But lately, with the whole kind of the whole tariff thing, like since April, when we had this major decline back in April, when the stock market kind of fell apart, and we saw Nvidia stock falling below that $100 mark. It didn't stay. It did stabilize very quickly, jumping back above it, but still, there was a bit of a shakeup. Now look, we we're having those tariffs. They're in place right now, so there's a little bit of an issue. So tariffs was one thing. Then you suddenly get the U.S. administration kind of getting worried about national security and saying that, Nvidia is becoming a company which is like a very strategic company, and we cannot allow Chinese chips being sold. Nvidia selling Chinese chips to China, we cannot really do that. So, matter of national security, let's not allow Nvidia to sell. But then, there was a problem. Investors kind of said, what the hell? And then they came up with a plan saying, oh, okay, we'll create special H20 chips, which will be specifically designed for China, right? So initially, it seemed like it's going to be a good deal. The market, kind of saw this as a good thing, and in a way, they kind of decided to work around this. Initially, China was agreed to this, but then I think that they had a better think about it and said, what are we, or second-class citizens or something like, you're selling us, you're keeping the good stuff for everybody else, but not for us. So, there's a little bit of a discrimination moment happening. But, of course, the U.S. is explaining this as a matter of national security. Anyway, well, to be honest, we can think of different reasons, why it could be a matter of national security about anything probably in this world. Anyway, long story short, so basically last week in the beginning of the week, we saw that, yes, Nvidia was working on those chips. Now, we are seeing China is kind of saying, you know what, we're not going to order anything. We're not going to go for those chips. So now there's a little bit of problem. There's negotiation happening. But what really stuck in my head was that initially the U.S. administration kind of said that, oh, it's a matter of national security. So let's not, we're not going to allow you to sell those chips to China. But then, yes, the public eye is seeing the fact that there are special chips designed for China. However, However, the ban kind of got lifted when Nvidia decided to share 15% of their revenue from the Chinese sales, or should I say, from the sales into China. So when that happened, that's okay, right? So there's no more matter of national security, you know. So yes, the chip is redesigned, but you know, but you're giving a cut basically. So basically, the U.S. government really wanted just a cut, and you know, this is what happens in other countries, which the U.S. kind of scrutinizes other countries for that. But hey, you know, it's an interesting moment, right? That we're seeing, and it's not only Nvidia. AMD also is sharing 15%. So basically, it's like a you're paying 15% of your not even profit revenue to the U.S. government. It's like giving like a permission, please, you know, please allow me to sell chips into China. So yeah, it's really, you know, one of the good mafia movie scenarios in a way. So look, what's interesting, it's like I said, it's very interesting. So that's why I'm saying that I'm really worried. Maybe this earnings report will be okay ish. However, maybe the next one could be a little bit of worry if this whole structure, this scheme, let's call it that way, with between the company and the U.S. administration continues. Then I somehow I don't know if this could be seen as a positive in a way. So maybe, you know, and if China also jumps in on the bandwagon saying, you know what, we don't want your chips anymore, now that's where the worrying part could come in for Nvidia. In general, I still believe that it's a good company. It produces a good product. However, it's kind of falling, it's becoming a victim of circumstance, you know, a political game circumstance. And yeah, I think that this is where, you know, we could see a little bit of a bad moment for Nvidia stock. Again, maybe I sound way too pessimistic, but I'm kind of leaning a little bit more towards the downside, to be honest. But again, only if we do drop below this 168.80 zone, this 50-day EMA here, then I'm targeting this 23.6 on the Fibonacci retracement, which is drawn from the lowest point of April to the current all-time high. And if that gets cleared, certainly it opens the door towards that 38.2 or maybe even lower. But again, you know, let's go step by step. Let's not rush into things, right? I will abandon this whole Fibonacci retracement idea if we do see a push above the current all-time high. If we do see that move, great. I'm going to consider a move higher. But if we don't, look, I'm not going to be surprised if, let's say, if we jump around here a little bit, but we have earnings on our nose. So yeah, let's see what's going to happen on Wednesday. If the numbers are going to be, let's say, very close to the forecast, I'm wondering if the market, if let's say if they still beat the forecast, but then it's still very close. I don't know if it's going to be, if the market will take it as a positive. Maybe initial reaction could be a negative one, but then it will stabilize because and they will come up with an idea to, you know, maybe they will agree with China on something. And, but then we have a long period before the other, you know, earnings report. And maybe during then we'll see some sort of like some sort of issues again between, you know, on the geopolitical side, and which could take their effect, who could have their effect on the company. Again, it's a, don't get me wrong, it's a very pessimistic approach here that I'm having. I hope the company will continue succeeding, but certainly I'm seeing these headwinds, and I want to be a little bit more on the careful side. And in general, look, from the technical perspective, we had a decent rally, so maybe a little bit of a retracement could be nice to pick up on this stock lower and then, you know, rally it again. Ladies and gentlemen, let me know in the comments what you think, what your thoughts are. Really would like to know. And yeah, I hope you found this useful. Thank you very much for watching and listening. I really appreciate your time, your views, your likes, your comments. And as always, stay safe, have your stop losses in place. Risk only what you can afford to lose. Don't overtrade, and everything will be fine. I'll see you in my next video update. Bye for now.